likely it is going to leak. So there's that. I'm going to grab my rags. I'm just going to take a couple, kind of ball them up, and then stuff it around. I don't need it to like be 100% dust free. I don't think anything's actually going to get in it. I just want to make sure that any big pieces don't get stuck inside the engine. For the most part, I was planning on doing an oil change after this, even though I already did an oil change to it. Change the oil again. One, because anything that may have gotten into it, I'd like to get it out. And two, I'm not sure, or I am sure, actually, I should say, that though I have the right weight oil, I don't have the right amount of zinc for this engine. Everything I've seen, it requires a high-end zinc or high ZDDP. But as far as my local auto parts store goes, they don't have that. What they do have is ZDDP additives that you can add to it. So what I was using was this Castrol 10W40. Chose that one because of where I live in Illinois. It does get cold. It also gets hot and humid here. So I figured if I was going to use this as a summertime driver, use this slightly somewhere in the middle, I think would be the best oil. If I'm wrong, let me know. But high ZDDP additive can help this, because this engine is supposed to have high zinc. That helps reduce the friction wear on the bearing surfaces. And I would like that to remain that way as long as possible, so that way I don't have to open this bad boy up. If the oil on the backside has anything to say about it, I'm probably gonna have to do that anyways to replace that rear main seal. So as you can see, there's a lot of, yeah. If you're doing a scraping like this to get dirt off, just don't be too rough on it. You don't want to score anything, especially if there's a mating surface like that portion. But to be able to get the bigger chunks off, if you just kind of glide your screwdriver across it, you should be able to get all that stuff no problem. And then we're going to go over it with some brake clean, just to make sure. It says getting my garage very dirty, and I don't have a broom out here, unfortunately. Take some brake clean, take your rag. I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm just looking for a bit cleaner. And now that I'm looking at this, one of those studs took out the insert. Maybe, unless it goes all the way back in. It might go all the way back in. Then again, it might have taken out half the insert. I don't know. That looks weird. I wasn't paying attention to that one. Do all those studs don't look like they have anything on that. I also don't remember if that was, that might have been the one that came out. Let me grab that real quick. What does that look like? No. So is that, well, that definitely screws in there. Maybe that one's just more recessed. Doing something new every day. Hopefully that's how that's supposed to be. I guess I could check that side. No, because that, maybe half the insert broke. Man, I really hope that's not going to be a problem. But I think that's about the extent of his experience. And a bunch of brake clean, some elbow grease later. It's looking better. It's not great. Didn't want it to be great, didn't care, but it definitely looks better. So now I'm going to take some of this PB Blaster and one of these old studs. I'm probably going to do this guy. Just put some grease around that. Go in. Kind of just go in and out of these threads. this little guy right here. So if I pop this in, I can now use, I believe this is my 1/2 inch attachment, unfortunately, but the good news is I have my 1/2 inch socket. So I did just fine. So now I can get my head studs wherever I put them. Right here. Right here. I can cut these open with my handy dandy knife. And I don't know where I put. Like I said, with my handy dandy cutting screwdriver. Hopefully, cut these free. Oh, there we go. And then after I have them free, I'm going to lay them out in an orderly fashion somewhere. Oh, I really need to clean up a little bit. But we got our long ones, we got our medium ones, and we got our short ones. Because I know it's the long ones go at the bottom. I think I have a long one that goes in this recessed hole. I think that's what that's for. And then I got my 2 short ones and a medium. And then over here, instead of another long one in the recessed hole, I just have 2 mediums over there. So if I can find my handy dandy anti-seize, if I even have any, I should have some. If you're wondering what I'm doing, since I couldn't find my anti-seize, I'm actually just dipping these in oil, and since there's some penetrating lube or lithium grease already inside there, should be all right. I don't plan on having to take these out again, which is why I'm comfortable with doing this. That was more of a situation of hopefully I won't gall up. I shouldn't. I will say, to start off with, I'm not a smart man, so this doesn't work. It's cool. This stud does not want to go in. Where is future advice? Don't do what I'm doing. If you have the option, always look up what your head studs or head bolts manufacturer asks for to put on the threads of these. That way you don't have any problems. If they're AARP, use AARP. Most of the other time, there's assembly lube or Permatex anti-grease or anti-seize. It's also a good option for generic stuff or rebuilds. So always do that. Don't do what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. So I really don't feel like running to the store. And I want this put back together. And I'm just praying I still have luck, enough luck to be able to not have any problems in the future. We'll see. One thing I do know I'm not lucky on is I didn't look up how much it actually costs for the exhaust manifolds, or whatever they're called. I think they're called heating ducts or air ducts, something like that, before I cut them off because the nuts were seized on and I couldn't get anything out there. But each one of those air ducts, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, these bad boys, they connect for the exhaust, and then they send hot air to the rest of the vehicle so that way you can warm yourself up. And then this side connects to the exhaust manifold. Right there is where I had to cut off because I couldn't fit the right size tool in to get the nuts off. Plus these things are rusted, but these are $200 a piece, brand new. Cheapest ones I was able to find, even used ones, were about $150 off of eBay, and I wasn't doing that. So okay, thing about studs is you want them tight, but you don't want them cranked down on them. The point of a stud is that it's not pulling the threads from whatever you're doing or whatever you're attaching. It's giving an even twisting force, or pulling. Compression force, even compression force. So the head is evenly compressed onto the cylinders and doesn't damage the threads. These ones already have heads, studs, the way these engines are built, but for other engines, a lot of people swap out the head bolts for studs just because they are more efficient as far as the way they go. I'm just giving these a nice cinch down, more than hand tight, just so I can make sure they're actually to the bottom. And then I'm using this rag so that way I'm not scoring the head studs, because those are things you'll actually be able to see once the cylinders are on this, as they kind of just intertwine. So now that we got that, I can go back over to my pistons, because these things are nice and tight. Go back over my pistons, I gotta figure out which ones are which. So this is the first one we looked at. Kind of oriented the piston the right way. Like I said, I went through all these to make sure the orientation of the piston rings were all good, and I put them back so that way it looked like I opened them for the first time. It didn't. So we're good on that one. The thing I did forget is one of my wrist pins is down here. So I'm going to pull all these cylinders out and get them ready to be able to be installed. This is the closest I felt to being a kid on Christmas in a long time. Let's see if I can get you set up so that way you can see more of what I'm saying. I even wrapped them back up. Oh, those ones are actual snap rings. I don't have any snap ring pliers, so that's going to be a treat. I just keep running into more problems. Okay. So I have my pistons out. Now I just got to figure out which piston goes where. So these are pairs. So that means they'll fit together side by side. You can see there's a flat side, and that's where the two pistons sit together. I just don't know if the arrow should help. So based on this, these, don't want to do that, but these might be the pairs because these have the arrows facing the same direction. I'm going to go with my gut feeling here and say, I don't know what I'm doing. So another thing I was confused about is, are there gaskets that actually go around these? Because it's not looking like it, but I would assume there'd be some sort of like gasket material that goes in between. That's a gasket material right there. Yeah, there's definitely something that goes in between. So these already have it. No. So what seals those? I guess I should probably open up my gasket set and see what I'm looking at. So that's the strainer gasket and the pushrod tubes. Got some crush rings. Valve cover gaskets. And then multitude of gaskets, and I just found my cylinder head gaskets. Got some O-rings and seals. These are mostly for the intake and exhaust. I think these are my seals for, some of these are for my cylinders. I think. I don't want to make a mess of this. Good Lord. Paper gaskets. It's a new one. I don't really deal in paper gaskets. So I think those go around the base. So I'm going to go around to all these pistons and put these at the base of them so I do not forget them. That's the pistons, cylinders installed like I wanted to do on this side. Now we can go to our head. Oh. And we're going to give this guy a bit of a cleanup because it is gunky. One side's clean. You can see the other side definitely not. So we're going to take some brake clean and give her a nice spray down. All right, so that's pretty clean. So what we, oh, I forgot. I also need to clean off the valve cover tube sealing surfaces. Again, not sure how much oil actually runs through those, but I want to make sure that that doesn't leak, especially because I forgot about the valve cover tubes when I was ordering parts. I wanted to get new ones, that way everything looked better, but I didn't because reasons. you are liable to crush these tubes because they do sit at the bottom of the engine right there. So if we put on that guy on that side, we could put one maybe on that side. And that should mate up just like that. So that's going to be a pain considering I have everything on its side because these kind of just sit in there. So I'm going to get all these with their new So now I got to figure out how I'm actually going to hold these up while I'm trying to put the heads on. Upside, I should be able to get the heads started. Just like that before I'll be able to push like that. Just make sure those are actually seated. I think we're in. All right. Set those guys over there. It's my old gasket. Not gonna need that anymore. Probably gonna regret throwing that away. It's fine. It's all fine. It's all fine. Okay. Now my head studs, wherever I put those back. Should fit just like that. And then after I get these started by hand, I'm going to run them down with my electric screwdriver. Not tight, just enough to where they're on there. And then I can use my torque wrench because I believe it is, you want to go, I'm going to have to look up the proper specs for that one, but I think it's 7 foot-pounds initially across all of them, and then you want to go like 18 foot-pounds. So now I have all the nuts in for my heads. Now I can take my handy dandy electric screwdriver. And again, I'm going to set this down to like 5, so that way it gets snug, but it doesn't get tight. 5 might have been a bit too much. 1 is definitely too little. So I don't want it to clamp it, right? I just want it to get snug. So that way everything is seated. Right. What we're looking for is nothing is seated, everything's just squared. Just like that. So this should now be as compressed as it could possibly be right now, but it should be nice and square. So that way, when I do finally look up the torque specs, I can torque everything properly. I believe for like the first joining, you're supposed to go do, 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 and then for the final torque, you have to go like X and X. All right, so I was right. It is 18 foot-pounds, but you want to do that in increments. So we're going to start off with 7 foot-pounds and go boom, 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 crisscross. I think that will be the most efficient way to do this. And if I read those torque specs right, that's all we got to do. Head studs are torqued, 18 foot-pounds. You want to do those in 2 steps. It does recommend going 7 across, and then that helps you avoid warping your cylinders. Unfortunately, my torque wrench only went down to 12.5, so we did that. Did it very slowly though, and in multiple increments. So as far as this should be solid with no issues whatsoever. Next, we're going to put on the rocker assembly. Now, that just goes on right on here. It's pretty simple. I just need to make sure I put the push rods in and then set up the rockers on it. Everything's already put together. One of these rocker assemblies was definitely replaced before the owner stopped working on it. So the only thing we're going to check for, and hopefully I have my feeler gauge somewhere around here, is the valve lash. I believe it's 6 thousandths. From top at top dead center is what you want to see, but these are pretty straightforward. You want to make sure you put push rods, boom, then you take your rocker assembly, and make sure I can find those nuts, but this should just go on its studs, and then you're going to have to make sure you put your push rods in their slots on the actual rocker. So there's a little spot that they fit into. You might have to get something to push it up before you put it in. Yeah, that one's now in place. And after you have all those in place, this should just be able to push on. If you are not at like top dead center, or if you're at a point where there's a little bit of compression on these, where it should be pushing in, it's going to try to compress those valve springs. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to compress those valve springs with our strength, right? This is where looking for the hardware for them went. And unfortunately, I took these apart a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what I know the hardware for those. I don't believe they were the same. I do know the torque specs for them are between 14 and 18 foot-pounds. The washer's back on. Thread on these 13s. And again, we're going to give it a little snug down, because it does have to compress depending on where the cylinder or the rotation of the engine's at. It does want to compress those rockers. So if we grab our handy dandy electric screwdriver and a 13, which I should have a 1/4 inch one right in here, should be able to do that. Make sure again your push rods are in the right spot. I'm going to try to go as square as possible. Again, make sure your push rods are in the right spots. I do need to know if I'm in top dead center though. One way you could do that is by sticking something in there, double checking. If it stops moving, that's when you know you're in top dead center. See, that's a whole lot of valve lash. So I think I have a feeler gauge somewhere around here. So at top dead center, what we're looking for is 6 thousandths of an inch. So if we look through this, go inside here, you can see it is way more than 6 thousandths. So what we got to do is we take a wrench, which should be in this case a 13, like everything on this car. 13, and then what we can do is we can loosen up this nut. Oh, good Lord, maybe. A little bit of persuasion on that. Okay. So, since those are now loose, that one was really loose. That explains why the valve lash on that one was bad. What we can do is take our feeler gauge, make sure we have our wrench on standby, and then we need our cutting screwdriver. That's not it. There she is, that guy. And then you adjust your valve lash by going to the flathead portion of this and you turn it in or out. So if you take your feeler gauge, and you got to make sure you're at top dead center for this. So you put this until it just barely fits. Okay, and that is putting that side back together. So we got our cylinders on this side installed, we got new head studs, we got our cylinder heads installed, we got our rockers installed, and we adjusted that valve lash. We probably have to adjust it one more time. That's after we let it run for a little bit, because sometimes it's good to adjust it while it's hot, but I wanted to get a good base to go on, so that way whenever we do start it up, it actually runs fairly decently instead of just less than ideal. Especially since I'm gonna have to break these pistons in, or cylinders in. It would be best that it's running as well as it possibly can be at that point in time. So with that, what we can now do is we can take a valve cover, and because I have multiple new ones, I really don't feel bad about doing this, especially since there's a whole lot of pressure that goes behind these. Like, there's no bolts that hold these on. It's literally just a metal arm that swings over it, but we can pop that on, flip this up, you take your pry driver, kind of just give her a good whoop. I'm gonna be honest, I've only ever taken these off. I've never taken one on. But you should just be able to work it on. There. And once it snaps into place, you know what's on there. That's nice and sealed. But that is 1/2, well, probably a third, because all the other stuff that needs to go back on this, including the fan shroud, alternator, fuel pump, filler neck, and somehow figuring out how, if I can put those exhaust manifold / heating ducts back on by having someone possibly weld the parts that I cut off. But that is a future video. So for now, since I showed you how to do this side, and it's basically the same thing for the other side, I'm gonna go ahead and get that done. And I think that's a good stopping point for this video here. And then next we should be able to get to the point where we actually start putting everything else back together. So thank you for joining me. If you're interested, let me know. And if you have any tips that, or something that I missed and I need to go back and fix, please let me know. But thank you.